If you're unhappy with your life, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not living up to your potential, it's something you're creating. And if we can understand how we're structuring and creating meaning, then we can create the meanings we want. So imagine if you could understand that structure and then create those meanings for your life and for yourself. You're living in a model of reality, not reality itself. And if you haven't guessed already who created that reality, it's you. You created that reality. It is composed of many models, models from different ages, from different contexts. So if you go back to as far as when you were first born, you started constructing these models of reality in order to understand the world around you, in order to survive. You have a mother or a father or whoever else was taking care of you, and you model them to understand what they're doing and how they're doing and how to navigate that. And you understand that these people make life possible for you. And so that's a model of reality. And then you get sent off to school and you have to start understanding social dynamics and authority and how to navigate that. So you're creating all these models of reality. But what happens is that over time, typically, those models become very limited because you're still growing and you're still being introduced into different contexts that are almost like new realities that you have to figure out and then model. And at the same time, you're basing them often off of a lot of the old models that you've created. So they have their limitations. So if you're unhappy with your life, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not living up to your potential, it's something you're creating. And this is not about blame and shame. And this is not about taking someone who may be suffering a severe hardship in life because of circumstances that is beyond their control. But if you basically have a roof over your head, you're not in poverty, you're not in a war zone. If you're unhappy with your life, that is something that you're creating. I can comfortably say that. And I know that because throughout my entire life, I was not born into poverty. I was not born into any circumstances that were extremely oppressive or abusive, and yet I was still very much unhappy and had suffered depression twice. But I had a roof over my head, I had my bills were paid, everything in that sense was fine. My health was good, everything available to me to make my life a meaningful, happy, fulfilling life. I just didn't know how to do that until I learned the tools of NLP. You then can start to understand them in the context of a model. Because when you understand your own map of reality, how you've modeled reality and created that, then you can change it. You can accept new information so that you progress, so that you evolve, so that you get better. If you think I'm saying, oh, it's all your fault that you are the way that you are, and if you're unhappy and all those things, turning it into fault and blame is not useful. Taking responsibility for it is extremely useful, because that's really the only true freedom we're ever going to know, when we take full responsibility for our lives, who we are, how I feel, whether or not I'm fulfilled, whether or not I'm living a purposeful life. There is something going on out here. The only way that we can sort it out and make meaning of it is through creating a model. And so that's why I say that we're not interacting with reality objectively. We're not interacting with it directly. We cannot handle all the information that's hitting our five senses all at once. We have to code it to make sense of it. And when we understand that, that's not about, the tornado that came through my town and destroyed my house. Did I create that with my map of reality? No, you did not. How you respond to that, the meaning you make of that, how you feel about that, yes, that's all being created from you. And that is something that for most people feels like you have no control over. You have no agency over. I can't do anything about it. It's just the way that I feel. And that's just not true. And if we fully take responsibility for that, then we can begin to bring this model, or how we're modeling this, into our awareness. When we can bring it into our awareness, now we can actually change it. We can't change something that we're not aware of. And this is where NLP comes in. NLP is a model for understanding how we create the model, which then creates what we call experience. It used to be said that NLP was the study of the structure of subjective experience, but all experience is subjective. NLP is about understanding how we structure reality that then creates our subjectivity around it. The analogy I like to use is take a book and you read the words of that. You're not actually reading the story. You're reading a code, a map that tells you what to generate in your mind, how to fill in the content. But every one of you generated different images in your mind. The book described the main character. They didn't give you every possible detail, because then that would have turned into the entire book. So they gave you enough details for you to fill in the gaps of what this the protagonist looks like. What does the hero look like? And then they give you enough of the details to fill in the gaps, to construct the story in your mind as you go. If we were looking to everybody's head while they're reading that book, you're going to see something different. At the end of it, everyone is going to have round about the similar meaning of whatever they made of the story. So this is what we call a map of reality. This is a structure of reality, and that's what language is. So everything that I'm saying here, I'm not creating that reality in front of you as I'm explaining it. You're doing that. I'm just giving you the code to do it. And this is the extraordinary thing. And we can transfer meaning to other people through language and also do it through gestures. So we're basically have a code that we can transfer to other people, and then they can understand that meaning as well, even though they're going to fill in different content. When you can understand those structures, and this is not now I understand it and then that's it. It's an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing practice of understanding those structures that create meaning for you. It's also a personal journey. It's in the practicing of these techniques that we start to generate the understanding, the wisdom behind how we create our experiences, because that's the biggest question I always get is, well, what is it really? What is NLP? It is not an easy question to answer. But like I said, I think most beginners are getting into it because they hear it's really effective and they heard it from a trusted source. So they say, okay, I'm going to go and learn this thing. And they do, in the beginning, have a few experiences where they see the effectiveness of it. And they keep going at it and they keep learning another technique and another technique. And then it just seems like NLP is this chaos of scattered techniques everywhere. And they still don't know, well, what is it really? I think the most profound thing about NLP, if you're willing to take it far enough, is that you start to understand that really what is the most important thing in everyone's life is the meaning we make of it. Is that a positive thing? Is that a really good thing? Is it a really fulfilling thing? Do I feel like I have purpose? Now, a lot of people look to things like religion for purpose, or they look to the roles that they play in life. Like if you're a parent, you do feel a tremendous sense of purpose. I got to raise these kids, these little beings. But what happens when the kids are then grown adults and they leave home? A lot of people will suffer a depression, or they call it empty nest syndrome. And what's happening there is they derive their purpose from something that passed, that went on, because after a while you don't raise your kids anymore. They're adults. They're off on their own. Or what about when you so identify with a job or a career and then you retire? You get, to that age where either no one wants to hire you or you're just kind of done doing the work and you let that go. Well, it feels like you're losing a piece of your identity, that you derived meaning and purpose from that. Well, what if we could understand how we're creating meaning and purpose and fulfillment instead of it seeming like something that just happens to us? That's how most people are experiencing it. I get these powerful experiences of meaning and fulfillment, and then they fade and they move on. And so it feels like, well, they happen to me and they don't happen to me enough, and I'd like to have more of them, but I can't force it. I can't make it happen. And we don't want to try to force that. But you can absolutely learn how you're structuring your experiences and your reality itself to then create meaning and purpose in your life and actually sustain it. That, to me, is the most empowering thing I could possibly think of in life. If you start your NLP journey understanding that that's where it's leading, every beginner understood that, they would stick with NLP a lot longer. And for advanced people, that is the next level of advancement. Most people consider themselves advanced if they can use NLP techniques effectively. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say, yeah, that is an advanced level of skill. If you want to take it to mastery, that's that next level of truly understanding how do you create purpose and meaning in your life. And I'm not saying that you can't, that it's not necessary to practice. It's absolutely necessary to practice. You do need to practice those techniques. I think that's another thing that people want to skip past. They want to just go straight to the understanding. When I first started practicing Ashtanga yoga, they kept telling me over and over it's 99% practice. But I was like, well, okay, so I'm not sure why I'm doing this yoga practice. And my teacher kept saying, well, it's only 1% theory. It's only 1% philosophy. You'll find it in the practice. And so I kept practicing. And then she was absolutely right. I started experiencing these wonderful things through the practice. I want to say NLP is 99% practice. Maybe that's not 100% accurate, but it's really close to that. And about 1% theory. And what that theory does is it just guides you in the direction that is going to benefit you most, in a direction that is really infinite. I'm giving you that 1% right now. And that 1% is, if you're not taking NLP to the extent understanding how you create meaning, purpose, value, and fulfillment in life. If you're not there yet, keep going because it gets so much more exciting. There's so much more there. But it wasn't until I started this NLP journey, I did hit a plateau. Like I said, the lack of understanding what I'm giving you now, what was holding me back. And then I met my mentor, Steve Andreas. He could tell I was really, really after something. And I was just hitting him with one question after another until he finally says, I think I know what you're after. And I created this model, the self-concept model. Go learn it, and I think it's going to answer most, if not all, of your questions. And he couldn't have been more right. The way that Steve would frame that model is like, well, this is the key to self-esteem. We take it even further than that, and we transform our aspects of ourself into what we value. And then that makes your self-esteem go up and stay there, and you maintain that. Because when you believe it, and that then shapes your reality. Belief is another code of reality. It's another map or model of reality, a belief about something. The most powerful beliefs are the beliefs about who you are, because from the beliefs of who you are, that tells the other beliefs that you have what to believe about the world around you. Who you are dictates the beliefs you have about everything else. And I took it to the extent of transforming all of my highest values into qualities of who I am. And when that happened, the combination of all those values, all of those qualities now feeling certain and solid, the qualities that I valued most, then I experienced fulfillment. I experienced meaning and purpose, and it was coming from me. And because it was there, I just aligned with it. And so my behavior, my actions all aligned with it. So not only was I feeling it at the moment, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. You become more of what you value when you believe you are what you value. Putting it out there is like, well, when I accomplish, or when people give me respect, or when people like me, then I will feel significant. If that takes a lot more work, it's a huge burden, and then it doesn't even pay off. Whereas you can restructure how you think, how you organize that information of how you think and what you believe. You can start looking at your maps of reality, eliciting them to find out, well, what structure have I been using to navigate the world around me that is probably outdated at this point and needs to be restructured. And that's what NLP is. And when you start to understand that, you understand it through practicing techniques within a model. You take that to the next level of understanding how you have created the model in which you're living in. And you're never going to have it all completely sorted out. This is an ongoing practice. But if you think about it, what could be more important than understanding how you are structuring your reality day to day that is creating the way that you feel, whether that's bad or that's good, and then optimizing that model so that you get the most fulfillment, you get the most meaning, the most purpose, the most value out of your life experiences. I can't think of anything that is more important than learning that and doing that. NLP is something you've been doing your whole life because you've been creating models your whole life. You have been seeking meaning and fulfillment and value. We are meaning-making machines. We're constantly making meaning. And there is a structure in how we do that. It can be challenging to learn. It can be challenging to master. It makes it much easier when you realize that you have in fact been doing this your whole life. You just have not been aware of it. So it's a matter of making it conscious. And that was why NLP was invented, a model to bring to our awareness how we create models of reality. And it's in these models that tells us what to feel, what meanings to make, how to categorize things, the meaning we make of the world around us, the meaning we make of ourselves. And if we can understand how we're structuring and creating meaning, then we can create the meanings we want.